Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. It is your girl, Marcy Thomas, and I am so happy to be back with you for another episode of Live Well, Sister. And tonight, the tagline is going to be Love Well, Sister, just based upon the conversation that we're about to dive into. So please come on in the room and join us for what's going to be a really powerful and impactful conversation for all of us, regardless of where we are in our love lives, because love, we know, is all encompassing for our lives, and we just really want to make sure that all of us are leaning in the best ways possible, especially if you're single and you're looking to be partnered. But really, this is for everyone. So in case you've never been here before, again, I'm Marcy Thomas, founder of Brown Girl Collective and Live Well Sister, and this is a space where we really like to have conversations that are going to help us to live our best lives. And tonight, I'm excited about our special guest because when I first saw her book online, I was like, oh, I definitely need to talk to this young lady because we all want to know what it means or how to find true love. So our special guest is Francesca Hogi, who is a love coach and educator with a passionately pragmatic and holistic approach to helping people find true love. She is the host of the top-rated relationship podcast, Dear Franny. And before her love career, she appeared on 2 seasons of the iconic reality TV show Survivor. And not only that, her TED Talk, her 2023 TED Talk, True Love and the Myth of Happily Ever After, has already had over 700,000 views. So that just tells you people love what Francesca has to talk about, and they love learning what it means to find true love. So tonight we're going to dive into her book, How to Find True Love, Unlock Your Romantic Flow, and Create Lasting Relationships. So without any further delay, let's welcome the beautiful and talented and loving Francesca Hogi to Live Well, Sister. Welcome, Francesca.
Oh, thank you for having me, Marcy, and thank you for that beautiful introduction. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here because, wow, how to find true love. This is something that a lot of people are in that space, trying to figure out what that all means and all of that. And I appreciate the work that you have been doing to help people in that regard. And this book is allowing you to talk to more people than you would just through, necessarily through your coaching and things like that. So Thank you. And congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much, Marcy.
Yeah, so of course you have a backstory before you became this love coach.
Yes.
And you've been a matchmaker and all of these wonderful things in that space. But tell us a little bit about you prior to going into this type of work.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I wouldn't do this type of work if love and relationships had been something that was easy for me, because it wasn't. And in my previous career, I was a lawyer, and I was a romantic child. Like my whole life, I wanted to fall in love. I wanted to have passion. I wanted to have romance. And then I grew up and I found myself as a young lawyer, and I'm like, I do not know how to get a date. This seems like a problem.
Right.
And so and this was, this was early 2000s. And at the time, I decided that I was going to go on Match.com, which this was back when that was very stigmatized. Like you didn't want anybody to see you. You didn't want, you're like, oh God, I hope nobody recognizes me. But I really was on this mission to teach myself how to date. Okay. And I think one of the things I'm so grateful for is that I saw my challenges with romance as a skills problem. Right? And so I could see that, like, because I was like, all right, I'm looking around at the world. I'm like, okay, I'm not the least attractive, least interesting, least kind. I'm not. So a lot of people seem to be able to figure this out. So maybe I can too. And so I underwent this whole like experimental phase. I was on Match, going on all these dates and being like, okay, now I know how to get a date. How do I get a second date? Okay, how do I, decide who's right for me, who isn't? And so I went through this whole process, and I didn't realize it at the time that I was really coaching myself, and I was really my first client. And so I kept on having these breadcrumbs, for years that was kind of kept just drawing me to this topic of romantic love. And I started a blog about dating back in 2008 because I had learned so much, and I saw other people struggling with things that I used to struggle with. And I was like, wait, I think I have something here that can help people. And people were like, yeah, thank you. This is helpful. This is working. And I was like, oh, okay. And then Marcy, are you familiar with Paul C. Brunson?
I am. I have been following him for quite a while. Yes, I love Paul.
Yeah. So I went to a 4th of July barbecue, and I met this woman, and she mentioned that she followed this black male matchmaker on Twitter named Paul C. Brunson. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Who? There's a and I took out my phone and I followed him, and little did I know that was actually a life-changing moment. Because once I started following him, I was like, I love what he had to say. I loved his commitment to love, to Black love, to really approaching romantic relationships with so much like heart and integrity. And one day he tweeted that he was going to be speaking at the Matchmaking Institute conference in New York. And see, that was my reaction. I was like, first of all,
there's such a thing?
Exactly. I was like, there's a Matchmaking Institute and they have conferences like this. What is this? And so I went to the conference because I wanted to check it out. And I met Paul. I met all these other matchmakers whose job it was to help people find love. And I was like, what could be more rewarding than that? Right. And so I went to matchmaking school, and I actually started working for Paul as his lead matchmaker and coach at the time. And that was the start of my love career. And what I skipped over was a couple of years before my love career started was my second season of Survivor. Wow. So that was something that I'd done a couple of times when I was in that, my lawyer years. And the other thing about being in those lawyer years was like knowing that I didn't want to be a lawyer forever, but not knowing what else to do. So I was kind of like, oh, here's this opportunity to go on the show. Maybe I'll do that. And, it didn't turn out well, but it was a good catalyst for me.
Absolutely. And it's a part of your story. Yeah. Because even in your tagline, I put survivor because you are a survivor. Whether you want on that show or not, you are a survivor. You are a love survivor. How about
that? Yes. Thank you. Yeah. So the love journey has continued to evolve. And I think this book is about what I've learned personally on my journey to true love. But beyond that, it's about what I've learned from working with other people. Because our own experience is just that. It's just our own individual experience. Right. But at this point, because it's been now 13 years that I've been helping people with romantic love. And so over that time, you get to see, okay, why, and I became really obsessed with this. Okay, why you have two people who basically have the same profile, right? Like they would be in the same lineup. Right, so to speak, right? And they both want a relationship. And for one of them, it's like, okay, I want a relationship. And boom, they're in a relationship. Right. And then for someone else, it's like this struggle and it's not connecting and this patterns. And I was like, what's going on here? And so I became really obsessed with understanding like, okay, what actually needs to happen? Because it's not just external, because it's not about how you look.
Nope.
And society will tell you this. They will tell you, oh, it's because you look this way, or you need to lose weight, or you need to have more money, or you need to have. No, no, no. There are people of every description who
Right.
have true love, right? So it's not about that. What is it about? And that's what everything I learned in trying to answer that question is what I put in the book.
Yes, and yes, you did such a good job because I showed
Thank
Francesca
you.
before we came on, but y'all see, I got a whole bunch of tabs here. You know, 'cause I am single, so hey, I wanted to
Yes.
learn, and and
Yes.
so I did that not just for our conversation because there's no way we would get into everything that I tabbed.
Yes.
But
I love you
just
have
for
all those
me to
tabs.
be able to go back and like kind of cycle through everything as well. But before we like start getting into some of the things you talk about in the book, one more thing. Well, you do mention it in the book because you said that you were doing matchmaking, and now
Yeah.
you kind of transitioned more into like coaching and
Mm-hmm.
education. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I have often said, oh, I want to go to a matchmaker. But after reading your book, it's like, maybe I might need to do some other things first before I consider that. So
Yeah.
for you in your own trajectory and your own path, what is kind of the difference between just I shouldn't say just, but bringing people together as a matchmaker versus coaching people along the way
Yes.
in their
Yes.
journey?
Yes. So matchmaking. So in the matchmaking industry, there's a saying which is that matchmaking is the world's second oldest profession,
Mhm.
and and it really is because throughout history that is how people have come together. There's been an elder. There's been people in the community whose job it was to keep track of who was available, who was coming of age, who all of these different things, and it was this very communal process of mating that we've really been part of, as humans for most of human history.
Right.
And modern day matchmaking is continuing that tradition. So it is like, so if you were my client as my matchmaking client, I would get to know you, what you're looking for, the kind of person you want to meet. And then I would go out in the world and I would find people who meet that description who I think would be a good match for you. So
Mhm.
it's physically making those introductions. And that's very seductive for a lot of people because they're like, wait, I don't have to do the work.
Right. That's my point. Like, oh, I don't have to do it.
I
Yeah.
just tell you what I want and you just go out and find it for me. But one thing that I found, and actually it's really interesting working for Paul, because Paul had so many we had so many clients who were coming to us because they essentially wanted a version of Paul. They
Mm,
wanted their own Paul,
okay. Mm.
because Paul, he's
Yeah, I get
handsome,
it. I
he's
understand.
tall, he's like in touch with his emotions, but he's still masculine.
Right.
He's
Right.
got all these things, right? And so one of the first things I noticed was like, these descriptions when I'm talking to these clients, like they didn't actually want Paul, but they wanted their own Paul, right?
Right.
And so, but when I would start to get to know them and say, okay, well, why is this important to you? Or when's the last time you met somebody who kind of met this description or dated somebody who met this description? And a lot of the times the answer was, I never have.
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I live in the same world that you do. Right. Like I don't have a magical man factory where I'm like, cloning Paul. So, what do you actually, let's get beneath the surface of things. And so I found that the people who were really willing to go beneath the surface and get more clear on like, okay, well, what are my actual values? What do I actually want to experience in my relationship with another person? I mean, our society, we're so focused on the list and we're
Right.
so focused on, I want somebody who's X, Y, and Z, and I want them to do X, Y, and Z. But if you just put that to aside for a moment, even if you met somebody who checked all of those boxes, still, what would the actual relationship between the two of you be like?
Right. Right.
Right? Like the analogy that I use is like if you were in the market for a new house, like you care about what the house looks like you care about the curb appeal, like you care about what the lawn, you care about that, but you also care about what it feels like to live inside that house.
Right.
Right. And it's the same thing with a relationship. So we can be so focused on the outside that you're not even thinking about, well, what do I actually want to share with my partner? And am I even in a place where I'm capable of doing that? Right.
Right.
Like a really, really common example. And I've, there was a time in my life where I had this challenge as well, where you want to be seen for who you are. You want to be loved for who you are. We all have that deep desire within us, but then you're not actually able to fully be yourself.
Mm, mm, mm.
Right. And maybe
Yeah.
you're showing up in a way that's more performative, or it's more guarded, or it's more, I'm going to be the version that I think this person will like.
Mm.
And I think especially as women, that's kind of
Yes.
how we're conditioned to be. Like, we're conditioned to want to be chosen. We want to be liked. So we have to be a certain thing to be chosen by the man and all of this. And so I saw that, like, this is a problem.
Yeah. It really is. It really is.
This is a problem. And so the people who are willing to say, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, let me actually think about what makes me a match for what I'm looking for. Right.
Right.
And do I even have the skills, like the relationship skills, to actually have the kind of relationship that I want to have? So the reason that I transitioned to coaching is because we had both coaching clients and matchmaking clients. And the matchmaking clients, a lot of them were really, really tough to match,
Mm.
because they really had this attitude that now that I'm paying you, I should get whatever I want, even
Mm.
if I've never met it before. But the coaching clients, I mean, it's real. And the coaching clients had a whole different attitude, because they were willing to look at, well, okay, well, how might I need to show up differently if I want to get different results? Right. Well, what are the choices that I'm making? Because yes, I'm blaming this pattern on my ex was this and my ex was that. But also, there was a time when you wanted that. There was a
Mm.
time when you said yes to that. Right. And so it's not to judge yourself, but it's to learn from it, so you don't have to repeat the same patterns over and over again. So it was just really clear to me that the coaching was much more effective, because people were empowering themselves to understand, like, oh, I know what I need to do.
Right.
And so how I describe my coaching now is that I coach people to be their own matchmaker.
I love that. That is so good, because it's true. You can figure some things out for yourself and kind of know what you want and what you don't want. And I mean, you talk about all those things. Why I have so many tabs. You talk about all these things in the book. So it's just really good to think about that, because, and I mean, I've had conversations with friends where it's like, oh, I want this, and this. And I'm like, okay, so what are you going to offer them back? I've asked that question of people.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to say, and my mom and I were talking about this earlier today, well, I want tall, dark, and handsome, but is that real? What does that even really mean?
What does that mean? Yes.
That says nothing about a person's character, or whether or not you all are on the same wavelength, all those sorts of things, that if you're really looking to have, quote unquote, true love that's sustainable, it's going to take more than, the fact that they just look good and, they look good on your arm, or, they make your toes curl, or whatever the case. There has to be more to it than just
right. There has to be more to it. Right. And so that's really what, when it's interesting. So when you're a matchmaker, love feels very scarce, because you have such specific parameters. And then it becomes this numbers game of like, okay, well, there's only so many men in this city who make this much money and have, and check all these boxes. So it feels like this scarce, like almost competitive sort of thing. Whereas when you go beneath that, because even like you said, like, I want somebody who's tall, dark, and handsome. Okay. And I always tell people, I'm like, you could have 1,000 things you want on your list. That's fine. But let's just talk about each one of them and talk about why and what that means for your relationship. Right.
Right.
And so for a lot of people, that their version of tall, dark, and handsome, I'm just using that as a shorthand. Right. Their version of that has so much to do with how other people perceive them.
Right.
Right. And by the way, some people choose that, like, you get to choose to have a transactional relationship. You get to choose to have a superficial relationship. If that's what you want, I don't judge you. Right. I'm not the coach for you, but I don't judge you. But I will say, for people who are more transactional about what they're looking for, you also have to then understand and expect that you're only going to be a match with people who are equally transactional.
Right.
Right. So if you want the person who's and checks all these boxes, then you also have to say, am I the kind of person that checks all of their boxes.
Right.
And a lot of the times there's there's a big disconnect,
Yeah.
right, between those things. But if you think about like, okay, well, even the tall thing, because I hear this all the time from women. It's funny because women are always like, well, your boyfriend's tall. You're always with tall people. I'm like, but that just happened. It wasn't
Right.
like a requirement, right?
Right.
And also I'm 5'11", so I feel like
Hey,
yes,
tall girl gang. So yeah,
tall girl gang.
we kind of
mean,
want tall.
I
We
mean,
are
you
tall.
know, and we kind of attract tall. Like, it just makes
Right.
sense, you know.
Right.
But anyway, but even when I ask women in particular, because this is where I hear this from, I'm like, well, why do you want to be with someone tall? Or this tall, like, because it's usually very specific, you know, like the height he has to be. And it's like, well, because then I feel like he can protect me. I'm like, okay, well, you know that there are men who are very tall who will not protect you.
Run.
They will run. They will be the one causing you harm. They will let other people cause you harm, right? And there are plenty of men who are shorter than that who will fight to the death to protect you. First of all, I mean, that's first of all. But then also, like, I mean, really, like, how much are you actually worried about your physical safety? Like, it's kind of, I feel like that's kind of like an excuse that people use. Right. But even that is like, so because if what you're saying is, I actually want to be with somebody who I feel is very protective over me. Right. And who has my back and who will take care of me. Right. And who cares about my safety, who cares about my comfort. Now, you know, that is abundant, right? Men in your city who are single and make this much money and and who are 6'2" and above, they're scarce, right? But men who will have that protective, loving, caring, I'm going to do whatever I can to make this woman's life easier and to keep her safe. There are a lot of men that meet that. So let's get beneath it. And the more you get beneath what those things are on those lists, the more abundant you'll realize that love is and possibility of who you can be compatible with is.
Yes, that's good stuff. I also like that you start out, though, because this book is broken down into 4 different sections, starting with mindset. But in the mindset section of the book, you start out with not just looking at love from the perspective of romance, which even though that's what you do, but understanding that love encompasses so much more than romantic love and the power of love.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I started the book that way because, again, I would not have this perspective if I tell people, I'm like, if you want to learn about love, like, make it your bill paying job to help other people with romantic love. Okay. Because you're going to have to figure some things out because it's complicated. We are complicated, but a big obstacle that I see and I could see in the difference between, like I was saying earlier, there, you know, you could have 2 people very similar in every way, you know, super fit on paper. One of them struggles. The other one, okay, I'm ready for a relationship. And then bam, there they are. And one of the big differences is how much people embrace love in their lives overall. Oh, wow. So the more that somebody is putting romantic love in this special category and it's up on a pedestal and it's the only love that matters, and if I'm single, then I'm failing and nothing else matters and the love in my life doesn't matter. You know, the more you do that, the more you're putting stress on yourself, the more you're disconnecting yourself from the energy of love, the inspiration of love, the experience of love, versus if you can look at yourself as you are your own powerful conduit portal to love.
Yes. Yeah.
You are, and we all are. And the evidence of that to me is the fact that no one worries about running out of love. You might worry about running out of time. You might worry about running out of money. You might worry about running out of chances, ideas, but you don't worry about running out of love. No one's like, oh my God, I love this person so much, but let me hold it back because I don't want to, then what if I don't have any love left, right? Wow. like we understand that it is an infinitely renewable resource within us. Right. So if you can really see yourself that way, and actually by taking romantic love down off a pedestal, it makes it so much more accessible because then it's like, okay, well, just like I love my family, just the way that I love my friends, just the way that I love my community, the way that I love myself, right? The way that I love the work that I do, or the more that you normalize just seeing yourself as this person who brings love to everything that you do, the easier it is to attract great romantic partners. That's the irony. So it's like taking it off the pedestal doesn't mean now you don't care about it, because you still get to prioritize it. But it's like, what is the energy? What is the perspective? Are you prioritizing it from a place of like fear and scarcity and it's got to be this thing, otherwise I fail and I'm not good enough? Or are you prioritizing it from a place of, yeah, I get to decide. This is something that I want in my life, just like I want friendship and all the other beautiful things in my life.
Right. That is powerful, because I live in the Atlanta area and I haven't lived here that long, but when I moved here, I was very intentional. And you talk about intention later in the book, in your book as well. But I was very intentional about like seeking spaces for like community and friendship and things like that, which I know, and I've often said, whoever that person is, I'm going to meet them while I'm out here doing what I do, and it's just going to be that thing that we connect, because I'm out here living my best life, showing up as myself. And, ultimately someone that I will connect with will be by me doing just that, and not necessarily like, oh, let me get on this app, or let me go to this, speed dating, or do this, not that I can't do those things, but but not making that the priority and just be about the business of living. So
can I make one comment that I can't help but make?
Yes, please do.
But first of all, I agree that like just living your life and doing the things that you are excited to do, that you feel called to do, that is probably the most important thing that you can do, even when you are actively seeking a romantic partner. However, I also encourage everyone to always embrace the uncertainty of how it's going to happen. Because if you knew how it was going to happen and where it was, you would just go there and you would just do that thing and you would just make it happen, right? So like it's always going to be unexpected. So how can you open yourself up? Because it could be a situation, and I hear people, I'm not saying this to pick on you, but I hear people say a version of this all the time where they're like, oh, I know I'm going to meet my person in this way, and there's no way I'm going to meet. And I'm like, you don't know that. Like, so you might have an intuition or a desire to meet them in one particular way, but by, and I'm not trying to make this like really deep, like like I'm not saying that you're closed in other settings, but some people really are, right? And so if you could instead get into the place of like, well, listen, because there's multiple people with whom you can have a true love relationship. So it's not like you have to, you have to look and try to find one person on earth. So if you can get in that mindset, then you can say, all right, well, now I'm excited because I don't know where I'm going to meet them. Right. So I'm just going to be open and I'm going to make sure that I'm ready. Right. And that readiness means I know what's important. I have a foundation of a loving relationship with myself. So when other people do love me, I can actually receive it. And when other people don't love me, I'm not interested in them.
I know it.
Right. Because look, if you, and a lot of people have this pattern of being with people who take you for granted or mistreat you, or you do everything for them and they take. That's a pattern that is a very common pattern, especially for women. And it's not your fault that is your pattern, but there has to be something in your inner relationship with yourself that is drawn to that tolerates that normalizes that justifies that. Right. And so our relationship with other people can't be any more healthy, joyful, fulfilling than what we're able to receive and expect. Right. And so for a lot of people, the only thing that's stopping them from having the love that they want is that they're still continually drawn to what they don't want.
Ooh, now that's the word right there. Drawn to what they don't want. And this kind of falls in line with that. How do you define true love, especially with people being so surface these days and with people dating on social media?
Thank you, Karen. That's an excellent question. And I do define it specifically in the book, and I will for you now. So first of all, I always like to say that I really think of true love as a type of relationship. So it's not about the kind of fairy tale version of true love that's like one perfect person that completes you and then you meet that person and you live happily ever after,
Mhm.
because that, you know, anyway, moving on. I'll just say what it is. So the way that I define true love is as a relationship that has as its foundation. And I'm sorry, the other thing I'll say really quickly before I give this definition is that relationships, as we all know, they all have their own dynamics.
Mhm.
They have their own energy, they have their own values, all of the things. And so and when I come to a true love relationship, I define it as a relationship that has as those foundational values unconditional love, which doesn't mean unconditionally feeling love every moment, but treating
Right.
each other with love. Unconditional respect, right? So respect doesn't have to be earned. Respect is not taken away because I'm mad at you, right? Respect is
Right.
not a gift that you get to give, and no, it's there, even when you disagree. Emotional and physical intimacy, emotional and physical safety, commitment, adoration, and joy.
Mhm. I love that. It's a great
So
definition.
So if you have a relationship and those are the primary dynamics that you have with your partner, let me tell you, that's good. That feels really good. And if any of those things are missing, say, like I mentioned emotional safety and physical safety, and I think we all understand what physical safety is, but maybe we're not as clear on what emotional safety is, right? So you might be in a relationship with somebody and you have a great connection and there's lots of amazing things about it, but you know that they belittle your feelings
Mm.
or they gaslight you, or those are the kinds of things that are emotionally unsafe, right? And so again, like, that relationship is that house that you build together, because it's a co-creation between the two of you,
Right.
and it's what you live inside of. So I want everybody to live inside of a relationship that is beautiful, that brings more joy to their lives, that enhances their lives, and where we have real, true connection and intimacy, because that's what makes life worth living, not just romantically, but in all of our relationships.
All of our relationships. Absolutely. So thank you for asking that question,
Yeah,
Karen.
great
It's a good
question.
question.
I should have mentioned that.
Yes, and that's fine, because it's me and you, but people are allowed to ask questions and all
Yes,
of that because
I
it
love
just
the questions.
makes for a greater conversation. But one of the other things you talk about is in the mindset, having a meet cute mindset. Now, we're
Yeah.
talking about romance and all that. For those who don't know, like if you're watching a romantic comedy or, a romance novel, and I do talk to romance writers from time to time, there's always a meet cute, which is kind of the way that people initially connect with one another. But you're saying that we should have that mindset, which is kind of what you were saying to me. To have that mindset that you don't know what it's going to be. So, what
Yes,
exactly
yes.
is that, and how does that help us when we start thinking about our mindset towards love?
Yeah, so I think having a meet cute mindset is so important, because basically the main principle of the meet cute mindset is the belief that every time you leave your house, you have the potential to meet someone special.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if your hair is not done. It doesn't matter if you're just going to run errands. It doesn't matter, like, if you're going to a ball. It doesn't matter. Like, every time you go anywhere and you're interacting with other humans, there is the potential for that serendipity, for that connection. One of the reasons why I talk so much about flirting throughout the book, and there's a whole chapter on flirting, not to jump ahead
Yes.
to that, but is because just getting into that mindset, flirting is how you start to put that into action, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just being more open to interacting with people, courting that serendipity, not knowing, because sometimes it's always going to be unexpected. Sometimes, you might be in line at a grocery store, and somebody you see that somebody else is checking out something, and you say something about it, and then they tell you, oh yeah, I went to this restaurant and they had this and I'm trying to make it, and you're like, oh, I want to check that out, and then you go to that restaurant and then you meet your partner there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, things happen randomly like that.
Right. Exactly.
So having a meet cute mindset is like, not it helps you to release this pressure of like, I've got, where can I go, what do I
Right.
have to do, what I have to say. It's like every time you go anywhere, that's possible for you, but
Mm-hmm.
what might you need to do differently to actually experience that? You
Mm-hmm.
might need to not be on your phone all the time.
Right, right,
That's a big one, right? You might
right,
need to check in with your body language, because is your body language, are you giving the universal nonverbal signal of don't talk to me?
mm,
Are you avoiding eye contact with everybody? Are you looking
right.
down? Are you being like, because if you're doing that, you are just you are cutting off possibilities for connection. And
Mm,
so if you can just embrace connection for the sake of connection, and just know, even if I say hello to this person who I'm never in a million years going to date them, that
right,
still has value, because it's still
right.
putting me in that, it's like normalizing that connection and those communications. And I swear, if you do this, and if you, especially if you really start to practice the flirting, like, the compliments, the attentiveness, all of those things that I talk about in the book, like, you will start to meet people. Like, it
Mhm.
will happen. Like, your intention for that is very powerful. So the meet cute mindset is just a framework to help get you there.
Yes, yes, and that is really powerful to think about that. So I know what I said, and I know what you told me, and I remember what the book said. So yeah,
Yeah,
always.
I
And
love it. I
it's
love
so
it.
funny because a good friend of mine and I were talking the other day and talking about, oh, I shouldn't be going out the house looking like X, Y, and Z. But you know what? That's usually when people try to talk to you when you don't
It
think
is.
you're looking your best.
It is. And by the way, and also I'm like, that's a great time to meet somebody. If
Right,
somebody thinks you look good when you're, sweaty and in your gym clothes, like, that's great. Why do you like, to me, the idea that you only want to meet people when you look like your absolute best, I'm like,
right,
why? You're not going to look like that every day.
right,
You're
right.
not going to look like that when you wake up in the morning.
Not, not. It makes me think of that movie. What was it? I'm gonna get you, sucker. When the lady, she's pulling off the hair and pulling off the big booty and the boobs.
Yes, exactly.
The person that you put on versus the person that you are from day to day.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
I just
Yeah,
want
and
to.
the one last thing that I want to just say about that mute cute mindset, and why I think it's important, is because dating apps have convinced so many people that the only way to date in 2025 is to be on a dating app, and that is just not true.
Mm,
And we should not give them that much power,
mm,
because
mm.
they are companies whose job it is to keep, like, if everybody who was on a dating app stayed on a dating app swiping for the next 10 years, they would be great. They would be happy with that.
There's money in
Okay.
their pockets.
There's money in their pockets. So no matter what their marketing says, the fundamental, like, incentives are misaligned. So because if everybody who was on a dating app fell in love tomorrow and deleted the app forever, a multi-billion-dollar industry would collapse. So why would you give them all of the power over your romantic life? I
Mhm.
don't, I don't want to see anybody do it. You're more powerful than that. Love is more powerful than that. The universe is more powerful than that. God is more powerful than that. So, meet cute mindset, everybody.
Have it, and it also what you're talking about. I'm just checking my note to make sure I say it correctly. That also ties into the whole fairy tale industrial complex, as you call it. They're
Yes.
selling
Yeah.
this fairy tale.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of people who make a lot of money selling the idea of romantic love as a magical fantasy. And it is magical, but the reality is that it's never going to be the thing that brings you eternal happiness, because another person can't do that, right? Like, that is an inside job. And so that idea that we're supposed to know and we know, and it happens and in a moment, and then you live happily ever after, all that does is disconnect people from love, and the possibility of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that actually ties into the other comment that Karen had, that, and all of these things, the end result is marriage. A lot of people marry to be happy, but
Yes.
believe you should marry because you are happy. So
Yes.
when said matchmaking is having a relationship with yourself first.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Did
I
you read
agree.
this book? It's actually my sorority sister, so he's one of those people I hang around and feel the love. So yeah.
Yes, I know. I read somebody wrote this recently, and I was like, it's so true. Is like, because, well, connected to the fairy tale industrial complex is the wedding industrial complex, right? And so all the money that people make over from promoting the fantasy wedding, and you've got to spend this much money, and it's got to look like this, and all of these things. But people spend somebody was, I can't remember exactly how they said it. It's way more eloquent than how I'm gonna repeat it. But basically, like, people are so busy planning a wedding that they don't think about planning a marriage.
Right. 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 I mean,
And
it's
they get all this energy and excitement and attention to the wedding, and then they're married, and they're like, oh wait, I'm still me, you're still you, and now we're married.
right.
Now what are we gonna do?
Right. I mean, I know it's, the Hollywood stuff, or the, the what do you call it, the reality TV stuff, where you see all these folks get married, these big grandiose,
Yes.
$1 million weddings, and they might last a year, maybe two.
Yes. Exactly.
So it's
Exactly.
definitely deeper work that goes into it. And that's one thing, before, because I can't believe we're already 40 minutes in. This is such a good conversation. There's so much we haven't even talked about yet. But just the whole idea that, we really need to work on ourselves. And that's something that's in this book. Another thing that I really like about it is that it really causes you to think about. It's not like, oh, go look for this man and say these things, or go look for this person, woman, whoever it is that you're looking for. It's not telling you that. I remember years ago a book called The Rules. Like, oh, follow these certain rules.
I know.
It's not that type of book at all.
Definitely not.
This is about the self-work that you have to do, and understanding. So maybe if you have been in situations where you don't feel like you've been successful, you can, begin to unpack that and what that is, and, what it's going to take for you to, as Karen said, as you've been saying, work on ourselves and figure some things out. And then I have to share that comment was funny, but work on ourselves first, and then we can see and even approach what we're doing. Because I'll be honest, what I liked when I was, I'm not ashamed of my age, I'm 58 years old, but what I liked when I was 18 or 28 or even 38 is not what I like now.
Same.
So things change as you age, and and you learn more about yourself. But this comment, working on ourselves, is 75 hard.
Ooh, yes. Well, here, this is a really important point that I want to make, because this is really important, which is that I never want anybody to feel like, because the whole working on ourselves thing, I don't want anyone to feel like you got to be perfect.
Oh, no.
And that there's some magical moment where now you're healed enough, because honestly, in a relationship, like in a true love relationship, as I'm talking about, that's the container where you can continue your love journey. You can continue the healing. Like, it's very healing to be with somebody who sees you for who you are and loves you for who you are, especially if that's not a common experience in your life, right? Mm-hmm. So the work is just to get to the place where you can have enough self-awareness so that you don't run in the other direction when somebody really loves you. Right? And you have enough of a, like I when I talk about this so much in the book, but I really see us all as being on a lifelong love journey.
Yes.
It's a lifelong journey, and it's not about being single, partnered, married, divorced. It doesn't matter what stage you are in terms of your romantic relationships. You are still on a lifelong love journey. Absolutely. And I believe that this journey is meant to teach us things. Like, we are meant to learn how to be more loving towards ourselves, towards other people. So I believe that there's a way to make sense of and learn the lessons from all of the things that you've been through, so you can be more confident, right? Like having hard relationships, difficult relationships, things that didn't work out, getting hurt, having poor judgment, hurting someone else. If we aren't learning from those things, then what was the point? Right?
What was the point?
But if we can learn from it and we can say, oh, okay, wait, I need to learn how to communicate better so I don't have to go through that again. Or I need to learn how to listen to my intuition, because I ignored my intuition. And that's how I even got myself in that situation in the first place. Right? Or I need to act, now I need to know that I don't need that validation from other people because I'm good enough. So now I can be in a relationship with someone, and it's not because, oh my God, they like me and somebody likes me, and now I have to just do whatever I can to stay with them because they like me, right? So I believe that your next relationship should always be better than the last one.
Yes, that's good.
Right. It should be better. Things should be getting better. And you should be, because you should be growing at your skill at love. And so you're able to make better choices. You're able to receive more. And yeah, just have more joy.
Yes. Couple more quick comments about this self-work, and then we can talk about some other things. But yes, and there's a flip side. Yes, sometimes.
Yes, and yeah, Karen, 100%. Sometimes it's too much because it falls into a perfectionism, right?
Right.
Of well, now I have to do it, and it's like, no, you don't have to be perfect. This is something we do not. Thank goodness, none of us has to be perfect to have true love. Because we're human, so we don't get to be perfect. That's not how it goes for us. Love is the perfection. Love is the perfection.
Love is the perfection.
Yeah. Right? And so choosing to love another person, choosing to love yourself, choosing to see love as a verb, it is something that you do. It's not just something that you feel, but it's something that you do, and that we can make that choice. That is the perfection. So I'm not a fan of people feeling like, I mean, obviously there's a baseline, if you feel like you're really not stable, if you're not, I understand obviously that that sometimes people really, there is a lot more work that needs to be done. But I think that people overestimate it, because if you are choosing the right kinds of partners, you are growing and you are healing, even if it's not working out. Even just, I think that dating, and I have a whole chapter in the book about self-love. I think that dating is an amazing opportunity to strengthen your self-love, the dating journey, because you have an opportunity to be confronted with, how much do I believe that I deserve?
Ooh.
Right? How much do I believe that I'm worthy of being seen for who I am and loved for who I am? What kind of boundaries do I have with people? Right? Like all of these things. How am I able to care for myself while I'm going through this highs and lows, or maybe this roller coaster of this experience? Like all of those things, those are all love skills. So if you have that intention, like, okay, how can I be kinder to myself? Right? Instead of beating myself up, what are some of the stories that I'm telling? What's some of the shame? What's some of the blame? You can heal so much just by, I call it self-compassionate curiosity as you're going through the dating journey. And by the way, because I'm very evangelical about dating, which I know it gets such a bad rap, and I know that modern dating culture is so toxic. So I'm not at all denying that. I'm well aware of what's going on out there. But at the same time, I think that if you are single in 2025, you are lucky, because you get to decide before you just kind of default. Because a lot of people, like you were saying before, I don't know, maybe it was even before we started recording, Marcy and I had a whole conversation. We were like, wait, we have to stop talking.
Yeah.
Let's wait for the
Trying to save a little bit for y'all.
I can't remember when we said it, but a lot of people just get married or get into relationships because they think that's what they're supposed to do. And it's not because they think, oh my gosh, this person is so wonderful. And it's really more about what so aren't you glad you're not in that situation?
Right.
You know how many people I've worked with who they've been married for 30, 40 years, and they're like, I was miserable. I knew from the wedding day, I did not want to marry this person, but I didn't know how to say no. So I said yes. Right. So to be able to decide for yourself what you want, and then to go out in the world and to get these skills, because dating skills are love skills, and love skills are relationship skills. So everything that you're learning from dating, from discernment, vulnerability, communication, flirting, connecting with another person, empathy, compromise, all these things boundaries, right? Big one. All these things that you're learning in dating, those are things that are going to make your future relationship better. if
Mm-hmm.
you actually have that intention. So that's what I want for everybody.
Yes, having that intention. Just real quick, there was a follow up to Karen's comment. Moderation, when it's so subjective, you have to learn to trust yourself. Often
Yes.
after having that broken heart, and oops, trying to catch them all. Ms. Lyric is saying, "I am healing, learning to love myself, so others know how to love me the way I deserve."
I know Miss Lyric.
Oh,
Miss Lyric,
hey! And then
do
she
we
said,
know each other?
"We're
Do
so
we know
happy
each
that
other from Clubhouse?
yeah, do you know? Let us know if you know Francesca." But yeah, I mean, and it's true that so many people fall into situations that they feel like they have to, and you touch on it in the book, and I think you just kind of said it a little bit how being with people because they chose you, but you not really making the choice to decide whether or not that's the best person. I'll be like, oh, so and so likes me, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So I need to go and be with that person because they like me.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes things come like that come from not having a lot of confidence about yourself, or even confidence in love, and being able to, really think about what it is it's going to make you feel a sense of true love, and you're just going along with somebody else's, their agenda, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yep. Happens all the time. So we can't judge it in
Right.
ourselves or others because it's just like, okay, that's part of the journey. Clearly, that was a lesson that you need to learn. You needed to learn the lesson that actually you get to choose. You don't have to just, just go with whoever chooses you. That's an amazing, amazing lesson. And so to give yourself credit for that, be like, wow, I learned that lesson. Okay. Like that's how it sinks in. That's how it becomes something. One of the comments was about trust. Yeah, sometimes, because a lot of the times when and I obviously, well, I'll just say this. A lot of the times when people have a situation where your trust was betrayed, when you actually reverse engineer, there was usually something and maybe a lot of things that you overlooked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had that conversation with some folks before. Yes.
Right? A
Yes.
lot of things, a lot of things, a lot of not believing who somebody was when they showed you who they were.
Ooh, child.
Right? And so, so you don't want to beat yourself up about that because that's not helpful. But you can be like, but you also have to have self accountability,
Right.
which is also accountability is also love, right? And be like, you know what? Yeah, so I do need to rebuild my trust within myself, but also I can be excited about the fact that when I'm paying attention, I know that I can make good choices.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm not gaslighting myself, I can make good choices, right? And so the thing that felt like such a blind side actually that situation doesn't ever have to happen that way again because of what I've learned from it. So, but that self-trust is really important.
That self-trust is important. And
Yeah.
just having a healthy sense of, self-worth, and who you are, and not allowing, we've kind of talked about it a little bit, what's happening in the world to try to dictate how you feel about yourself and whether or not you are quote unquote deserving of love. We know there's a lot of conversations about that,
Yes.
you
And
know.
yeah. Well, you know how I feel about that. So
Yeah.
because you read the book, but for those who haven't read the book and maybe you don't know how I feel about this, because I do talk about self-worth a lot in the book when I talk about self-love, and I have a whole self-love formula, and self-worth is so important. And I think we have to be very intentional about claiming our worthiness because the world, it's like on a mission to tell you all the ways in which you're not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are not being intentional about like I gotta reject that narrative, it's just we're only human. Like it's gonna seep in. But the way that I like to frame this for people, because I call this taking self-worth off the table. And what I mean by this is think about a newborn baby. Could be a baby you know and love, could be a hypothetical baby anywhere in the world. What does that baby have to do to be deserving of love?
Nothing.
of safety, of kindness, of respect, of joy, of abundance, of good health, of what do they have to do?
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. So if you can accept that, then hopefully you can understand that worth is inherent.
Mm-hmm.
So the world is going to tell that baby all the ways in which it doesn't deserve, all the things it doesn't deserve, but does that make it true?
Right. Right.
Right. So if we can accept the fact that we all have, because I feel like we have a self-worth crisis in our culture and our world. Like if everyone believed that they were inherently worthy, this world would look very different and we would
Very,
not all be stressed out and
very.
everybody would have great relationships and it would be a whole other thing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But when I talk about self-worth, I mean, I like to start with that and just ground it, be like, okay, so now you can start to say, well, I am worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I don't feel that way all the time.
Right.
So separating the truth from your emotion and your feeling and your programming around it.
Mm-hmm.
And then starting to ask yourself, especially in situations where maybe in the past you have made decisions from a place of less self-worth, asking yourself, well, I know that I'm worthy, right? So if I truly believe that I was worthy, what might I do now?
Right.
What might I do differently? And taking that action. So that's, I could just call that taking high self-worth action.
Mm-hmm.
Do not worry, not wait until you feel it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Decide to do it. And then after you do it, and you're not going to maybe do it 100% of the time, that's fine. We don't have to be perfect. Give yourself credit for having done it. Show
Mm-hmm.
yourself that you can do that. And the more you train yourself to take those high self-worth actions, the more it becomes a natural thing to do. And then the feelings do catch up. But we got to start with the action and not try to start with the feeling, because the world is just going to
the
give
world.
you too many emotions that are not productive or even true, you know?
Yeah, that is so true. Just learning, well, some people say fake it till you make it. So I was just really thinking about, because, a large portion of my audience, Black women, maybe a little older, sometimes we're a little thicker than a sticker, as they say. And, if you listen to the manosphere, they will tell us that we don't have value.
I know. We got to stop listening to the manosphere.
Don't have children. If you have children, nobody's going to want you because you got kids. You weigh too much. Your body count is too high, whatever it is. They're coming up with ways to try to diminish us and make us not feel that, we're worthy of love. Any kind of love. True love, definitely not. But it's so important for us to not take those things inside, and understanding that there is someone for each and every one of us, if it's something that we desire, because there are people who are happily single, and they don't care about finding a romantic love per se, but no matter how you show up in the world, that you are worthy, and not to listen to those messages that are constantly being fed.
Yeah, no. And I don't know if you read the part of the book where I specifically talk about Black women, because I wrote this book for everyone. It's like gender neutral, racially neutral, all the things, but I couldn't not specifically talk to Black women because we have an extra challenge, because it seems that the world is determined to make Black women feel like nobody wants to love us.
Right.
So that narrative, if we give that narrative power over us, then that's what we manifest in our relationships.
Right.
Right. And so it's so important for us. And to think, like you talk about the manosphere. I mean, people might think because this is my work that I'm like all up to date on like these people and what they're saying and what I'm not.
Good for you.
Because I'm like,
some things just kind of go past them. Whatever.
I'm like, I mean, I see some things here and there on social media, but I'm not in those algorithms. I'm not watching those videos. I'm not giving that my energy, because I'm like, why would I do that? Right. like if would we be watching videos of like white people saying like, yeah, you're black, so you're not good enough and you should be a slave? Like, would we be watching that? No. So why would I watch a video of a man talking about how black women don't deserve love? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And so I think that as Black women, we have to learn how to protect our peace more and honor ourselves more and just see that. I mean, and whether you're Black or not, I think that there's so many red flags that come up so quickly with people who think in ways that you don't actually want to mess with.
Right.
that it's actually a good thing, because you're like, oh, well, now I don't have to waste my time getting to know you, because I already know this is not it, right? And so, I love confidence is something that I talk about in the book, and that is just your personal belief in yourself that you can handle love, you can find the love that you want, you can keep the love that you want. And we have to look at all the things that we are ingesting that are making us feel less confident and cut them out.
Cut it out.
Especially when this is just nonsense. This is just hatefulness. This is just, I was born worthy. I don't care what these people say.
We were born worthy, and doesn't matter, like you said, doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, what you weigh, how many babies you have, whatever it is.
Born worthy.
Yes.
Take it off the table. It's not about my self-worth. And if you think it's about, you're just telling on yourself.
Right.
But that's not reality.
Right. But I had to bring that up because of who the audience is, and we know the things that we hear that can, oftentimes be discouraging. When we're out here thinking about what it means to find true love. And believe it or not, we are at an hour already. So there's some stuff we're not gonna have time to talk about. But can I have a couple more minutes of your time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't want to be rude. Sometimes, we could go for a while. We could keep going, but it's just the fact that these are all things for us to think about, really, or not think about when people are saying things that are contrary to what it is that we know about who we are and what it is that we seek. And one of the things in part 3 of the book, you do talk about soul set, which is connecting to a higher love. So just share a little bit about what you mean when you say that we need to connect to a higher love in this process.
Yeah. So we don't have to do this all on our own. Love is the most abundant thing, right? We already talked about that. And love is something that we get to tap into, we get to experience, whether you believe, whatever your religious beliefs are. I mean, I think if you don't have any faith in any type of higher power, consciousness, force in the universe, then I guess this isn't going to land for you. And I wish you luck on your love journey, because it's going to be a lot harder. The less faith you have in a higher love, the harder this is going to be. Because once you tap into that higher love, then, and you access this through gratitude, through intention, through presence, this is not like some airy fairy thing, but this is just understanding that I can't control all of the factors that need to come into play, and where and how and when and who. You can't control that. Literally, you can't control it. And, and I talk about in the book of like making the distinction between what's in your department and what's in the universe's department. Right? Like, where exactly you're going to meet this person and where they've been hiding, that is the universe's department, right? Your department is, can I recognize them? Can I receive the love that I want? Can I have discernment? Can I give the love that I want to give to another person? That's your department. Right? And so when you accept that, like, you don't have to do this on your own, you can actually use the power of intention to connect more. You can let the universe know that you have this desire, and then you can start to pay attention to your intuition and the breadcrumbs. And, I just feel like I need to talk to that person or go to that place, or this thing is calling to me. I'm like, follow all of those signs, because that's how serendipity works. That's how divine power works, it's not going to be like, hey, Marcy, so here's the directions. You're not going to get it in an email, right?
Right.
You're going to get it through your inner guidance and through your inner wisdom. And so the more connected you are to that, then the more you can be guided to the love that you want.
Mm-hmm. And when you said email, it probably land in spam. You're like, what is this? Yes. I mean, that is important, because how many of us have had those times when we say, oh, I need to be here or be there, or, whatever the case may be, or your route gets diverted, or, whatever the case may be, that you end up meeting someone. And sometimes it may not even be that that's the person that's going to be your partner, but it could be the person that leads you to the person who could become your partner or whatever.
It could be the person that you needed to have that relationship with, because that relationship is actually going to teach you something that you needed to know in order to meet your partner, or to build what you want to build with your partner. Right. So there's just a level of surrender. And I always just encourage people to reflect on, what are the things, like, take it out of romantic love for a moment, and maybe even romantic love, because maybe you've had this experience in the past where there was something that you knew that you wanted. Your heart was calling you to have it. You didn't know how to make it happen, but you just, and you surrendered to that uncertainty, but you held that faith and that belief. And it happened. And it happened in ways that you never could have predicted. So aren't you glad you didn't waste all your energy trying? And it's the same thing. Like, you can waste all your energy stressing yourself out about questions that you literally cannot answer. Or you can work on cultivating that faith and that trust and that surrender.
As you were saying that, I'm thinking about just a personal story, and I'm gonna make it real brief. But there is a person that I dated. Gosh, it's been a long time ago now. But that person, when I was dating that person, he had two nieces that I adored, right? And like one holiday, I was out shopping for them, and I couldn't find anything that I wanted, specifically for them. And I'm like, well, where's all the stuff for the little brown girls? I can't find anything for little brown girls. And brown girls stuck with me. And
here we are.
Here we are. Brown Girl Collective turned 16 on this past Sunday.
Wow.
The idea of doing something that had the name Brown Girl came from this dude that I dated probably 18 years ago, but that stuck with me. So no, we didn't work out, but there was something that happened in context of my relationship with him that led me to want to start something called Brown Girl Collective. And now all these years later, I'm sitting here talking.
Amazing. Oh, I love that. And I also bet that you had I wouldn't be surprised if you'd also had some impact on his nieces that you don't even know.
I don't even know. Yeah.
Because you loved them.
Yeah. Sweet 16. Absolutely. So many things. So, and even though this isn't quote unquote romance, it is something that I love dearly. And I'm able to come to you in ways that, had I not had that experience, this might not be what this is today. So
I love it.
It's not always about, was it a happily ever after? Because it wasn't.
Hey, that's okay. I've had plenty of not happily ever afters too, but I'm grateful for all those experiences.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing. Also, I think that, when you're saying how to find true love, you're not necessarily saying how to find the love that's going to last for the rest of your life. Because sometimes
it's not meant to.
And there's a season. There's that too.
Yep. Absolutely. But it still matters, and it still has meaning.
It still has meaning. It still has meaning. So I might send him a message and be like, thank you. He's going to be like, what is that? Thank you for?
Yes. Oh my gosh. This could be the start of a whole new chapter of this love story.
Like, thanks for nothing, but thanks for everything at the same time. Nothing and everything all at the same time.
Oh, mercy. Hilarious.
I'm a little silly. The last thing that you do talk about in part 4 of the book is the skill set, which is to date in alignment with love. And what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I really look at, the opposite of love is fear. And there you can plot everything on a spectrum between love and fear, right? And we all intuitively understand that creativity, joy, acceptance is more loving. We can understand that fear, prejudice, violence, those things, or, I said fear, those we hate, those things are more fearful. And many people are actually approaching their search for true love and they're really more on the fear end of the spectrum.
Mm.
So they're more guided by the fear of what they don't want or what they're afraid might happen or might not happen than they are by actually holding a vision and choosing to date from a place of love. So it's like I was saying before, of like the scarcity. You can choose to date from a place of scarcity, which is very fearful. And oh my God, there's not enough, and there's competition, and I'm this age, and and you can date from that place, or you can date from a place of knowing that there is, first of all, there is no expiration date on love, right?
Right.
Including true love, right? So the fear that you might have, because society is going to tell us all the ways in which we should be fearful. So this is a choice to say, I'm gonna do, because what's my department is to find the abundance of love in my life and to tap into that so I can channel that energy and I can show up rather than the fear of not being chosen, which if you have a fear of not being chosen or being rejected or something like that, then are you going to show up as your full authentic self? Are you going to show up in a version of yourself that you think is going to keep you safe from that fear, right? So versus if you're like, I know that the only people who are right for me are the people who can see me for who I truly am and love me for who I truly am. So that's how I'm going to show up in dating. I'm not going to focus on getting, if you are on a dating app, most people who are on apps are trying to get as many matches as possible. And that's a goal, but I think a better goal is to make better matches, right? So how can I make sure that on this app, you're showing up, your photos are really showing your true personality. You're not trying to look like the hottest, sexiest thing in every photo. You know what I mean? What are you sharing of yourself that's beyond the surface and the cliche, right? When you're having conversations with people, no matter how you're meeting them, what are you talking about? Are you talking about things that actually matter to you? Are you having meaningful conversations, or are you just going into small talk and then you don't even get to know each other for who you really are, right? So dating in alignment with love is like self-love, but also just this choosing love over fear, and choosing open-heartedness over closed-heartedness.
Yes, that's beautiful. And yes, I know we had to condense the last part, but this conversation has been so juicy. 2 hours, but I'm not going to do that to the audience. I'm not going to do that to you because you're probably like, girl, I got to go. But
I do have to go eat dinner.
Right, exactly. So I am being mindful of that. But I really do love this book. What you all got is really just a snippet and a little extra stuff that might not necessarily be in the book, but just good conversation. Yeah. But because like there are things in here like your dating archetype, like, are you an avoider? Hand back there, a looper, a surfer, a sailor, what those things mean, how do you, change those things or alter those things or work within those things that you are, and just a lot of things. There are exercises and questions to ask yourself. And so this is really rich. And again, why I have all these tabs? Why I will be referring to this book again and again, because there's some good things in here just to help on that journey. And really to find true love, whatever that looks like for me in my life. And for those of you who read it, whatever that looks like for you in your life, but to really, seek that. And as it says, unlock your romantic flow and create lasting relationships. So Francesca, thank you so much for being here and joining us for this conversation. Now, of course, I mentioned it in your intro, a while ago, that you podcast and all that. So just before we go, tell us a little bit about the podcast that you have.
I have a podcast it's about love, about relationships, about dating. It's called Dear Franny. I'm also Dear Franny on all the socials, so you can find me there. And the podcast is on all the places where you get your podcasts. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I feel like I'm easy to find. I do have a request because I realize I haven't asked for this, and it's something that I do need or want,
Okay.
which is if anybody does get the book and you do enjoy the book, please review it.
Oh yeah, I need to finish mine.
Please review it. That's my request. Please review the book. And 5 stars. Otherwise, don't bother.
Keep it
I'm
real.
just kidding, ish. But no, I'm easy to find, and I appreciate you so much for having me, Marcy. This has been a great conversation, and I could easily talk to you for another hour, but I won't do that to you either.
We have to do part 2 another day. Come back for part 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
And congratulations on 16 years. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yes, I didn't make a big grand announcement on social, but yes, it was 16 years as of Sunday. So I'm excited about that.
Incredible.
And, looking forward to what the next 16 years are going to bring. A lot of great things are happening. So if you don't mind, please don't hang up on me because I do want to say, a proper good night. But I'm going to make the announcement. I thought I had the book in here with me. I do. I want to share with everybody who's coming next week this time. So, but yes, you just hold on for me for just a second.
Sure can.
And I will see you. And thanks again for being here. And everybody,
and thank you everyone for watching and for your great questions and comments.
Yes. And don't forget to grab a copy of the book. I do have it up at the Brown Girl Collective bookstore, which is just that browngirlcollectivebookstore.com, which is actually tied to Bookshop. So if you shop on Bookshop, you can go there and get the book there. So, all right. I'll see you in just a second, Francesca.
Okay.
All right. So yes, that was so much fun. And, y'all could tell I was having a good time because as I told her, I was reading so I could have this conversation with you all, but I also was reading for my own self because, we could always learn things and, just think about how we might show up differently or do things differently, or in some cases, there's some healing that has to be done to prepare yourselves for, the things that you're looking for. So I am, again, so happy about Francesca's work and the fact that she put this book out in the world to introduce what it means to find true love. So actually, I know we were talking about romance and, things about love and all that. And of course, I talk about a lot of books, so we do talk about romance. So just as a reminder, on next Monday, which will be the 14th, we will be talking to Danielle Allen about her book, Plus Size Player. So, hey, all you plus size players out there, get ready. That is for next Monday. And then on next Wednesday, a week from today, 8:00 p.m., I am super, super, super excited to be having a conversation with Malcolm D. Lee and Jane Allen about The Best Man, Unfinished Business. Yes. So this is the first in a series of 3 books that follows the 2 movies, as well as the television series. So I am really honored to be able to have this conversation a week from today. So please look to join us. If you're watching this in real time, it'll be on the 16th of July. Otherwise, you can catch it, on YouTube later on. So thank you for that, everybody. And I look forward to seeing you again real soon. And in the meantime, in between time, please continue to not only live well, but love well. Take good care. Bye-bye.